Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has released new RUSSIAGATE documents.
This time they appear to be an email exchange between former National Intelligence Director James Clapper and former NSA Director Mike Rogers.
The documents show that Rogers first emailed Clapper and expressed concerns about his team not having enough time to review and then be confident in assessing a certain aspect of Russian interference in the 2016 election.
Now, specifically, whether Russia hacked the DNC and DNCC. In the emails Gabbard shared, Rogers appears to write to Clapper in part, quote, "I know that you agree that this is something we need to be 100% comfortable with before we present it to the president. We have one chance to get this right, and it's critical that we do so." Rogers appeared to continue, quote, "If the intent is to create an integrated product that is CIA, FBI, NSA jointly authored, that we can all defend, we need a process that allows us to be comfortable, and I'm concerned that we are not there yet." Now, Rogers, per the documents, affirmed to Clapper that he does not necessarily agree substantively on the aspect of Russian interference, but that his team wanted to stand behind the intel report without hesitation.
Here's where things get interesting. The documents Gabbard dropped show that Clapper on that same day emailed back to Rogers, quote, "Understand your concern. It's essential that we, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, and ODNI, be on the same page and are all supportive of the report in the highest tradition of that's our story and we're sticking to it." Clapper then wrote, according to the docs, that the CIA had provided to the intel community a draft of the assessment put together by the ad hoc fusion cell. This fusion cell, intel community, sources tell Fox News, was basically Clapper's team he put together to draft the assessment. Clapper, per the docs, then appeared to end his email by writing, "We will facilitate as much mutual transparency as possible as we complete the report, but more time is not negotiable. We have to compromise on our normal modalities since we must do this on such a compressed schedule. This is one project that has to be a team sport."
Now, back in July, Clapper and former CIA Director John Brennan wrote an op-ed for the New York Times setting the record straight about Russian election interference in 2016 and allegations of politicizing the investigation. The pair wrote in part, quote, "The real politicization is the calculated distortion of intelligence by administration officials, notably Mr. Trump's Director of National Intelligence and the CIA's positions that should be apolitical. We find it deeply regrettable that the administration continues to perpetuate the fictitious narrative that Russia did not interfere with the 2016 election. It should instead acknowledge that a foreign nation state, a mortal enemy of the United States, routinely meddles in our national elections and will continue to do so unless we take appropriate bipartisan action to stop it."
Deputy Director of National Intelligence Aaron Lucas wrote on X, "The legacy media wants to make this about foreign influence. It's not. These declassifications are critical to document how our own intelligence process was abused for political ends. If Americans can't trust that we're providing unbiased, apolitical intelligence to policymakers, we might as well go home."
So they rushed is the accusation and got in lockstep about a cause, something that is well documented a Republican strategy to get in lockstep, even behind causes that, let's say, half of the party doesn't believe in, like President Trump himself. Let's just get in line. Let's do these things. And so they looked into something that I think is worth looking into. Like, the entire investigation into Russia was not a hoax. Donald Trump had contacts that should be questioned. They didn't say that they actually tampered with the votes. They said that they were going on social media, both bots and real Russian people, trying to integrate content that would sway people's minds about one candidate specifically, all right? Or they would hack into the DNC and also provide information about Hillary Clinton that was damning to her.
That was true information.
So that's what I'm saying. What's wrong with investigating that? Why is this such a huge? This is not a smoking gun. You have to look into that. This is a bipartisan committee that came up with these reports that showed that Russia had any type of access to our larger population of voters and was trying to take one side or another.
No, that's not what they did. They reached a conclusion that Donald Trump was elected because of Russia. That's why. And then at the direction of Barack Obama, went searching for evidence that would bear out that idea that they introduced, despite the early evidence saying there was no hacking. Then they had to invent this utterly fraudulent narrative of influence via social media, which has by now been completely debunked. Yes, there were a small number of Russian-paid bots. They were not, I've said this a million times, our viewers know this by now, they were not tailored to swing voters. They were not even in support of Donald Trump. They were rather just true and valid criticisms of Hillary Clinton.
Yes, exactly.
So then you have to take the position that telling people your opinion on a candidate, it's not hypnotism.
No,
it's what everybody's doing at all times.
Certainly not, but the actual hoax is the claim.
So how's that illegitimate?
Because the actual hoax is just the claim that the Congress, a bipartisan committee, should not look into something like this. Why would they not look into something like this? So yes, it might have been rushed, but you like to downplay, is that a huge crime to rush something? Like, that's the only thing here that I see. Okay, maybe Congress and maybe leaders should not rush through
What's
things.
the crime? It's a crime to buy ads on Facebook?
No, the crime is that they're trying to tamper with the results of our election to favor one candidate. You shouldn't want any foreign leaders or any foreign influence, any president and hopeful president being in contact with people that don't look like a connection that you would like to happen.
Let's get a little broader here. When the New York Times writes an editorial saying we endorse Hillary Clinton and we want you to vote for her, do you call that election interference?
No, that's an editorial board that's separate from the
New
York Times actual writer.
Russian bots
because these are
saying
Russia.
Hillary Clinton is no good.
This is
Russia?
This is an editorial board that decides to endorse or not endorse. We're talking about a foreign nation that we don't have the best diplomatic relationships with.
I don't have bigotry toward foreigners.
Look, it's not about bigotry. Look at the relationship with Russia. Why would you want any country interfering with an American election? That is anti-democratic, right? We decide who our leaders are. So why would you want them paying money? Why would you want them paying money to support one candidate? Or why would you want them paying money to tarnish one candidate's legacy? Allow it to be a free and fair election amongst Americans who actually are going to be affected by the next leader.
If I was preventing people from saying how they feel about the candidate, that would be interference.
No, prevent people is not one. It's not one thing. There's a targeted attack specifically on one candidate in order to make another candidate look better. Yeah, but
you're saying targeted attack, but it's just words. It's criticism.
And foreign
the targeted attack would be hacking the voting
and digging through emails to create a story about Hillary Clinton. That's what I'm saying. Like,
it was a true story. It was her emails. That was a criminal act. I fully,
So we shouldn't want Russia doing that. So that's what I'm saying. There should be no argument that we should look into this as a Congress. That's like their sole job, is to make sure that nothing egregious is happening to the United States as a whole, America first. So Russia should not be first or coming in the election in any way. I don't really understand why this is we should agree here, Robbie. We should not want Russia spending millions of dollars to try to influence our election, whether it's real people or bots. In any way. No one ever
said $1 gazillion.
Yeah, this is our American political system. We allow for people to spend money and lobbyists to spend money. We should not want let any foreign nation coming in and spending equal money to try to influence.
I don't even really necessarily want to go here, but the First Amendment is not a guarantee of speech rights to a specific group of people, Americans. It's a restraint on what our government can do with respect to speech. So, the Russian people expressing opinions about Hillary Clinton on Facebook is, to me, not this urgent crisis that the mainstream media has spun themselves into.
Them digging in to find information and personal emails. Yeah, they're literally spending. It's like, why is this worth rehashing? The whole conversation is that Obama committed treason, and this is what Tulsi Gabbard is saying. When there are so many things to discuss, and it really is coming.
Obama ordered the intelligence community to find damning information that Russia was responsible for. It's coming on the heels,
and literally at a press conference where people were asking President Trump about Epstein once again, and then here comes in Tulsi Gabbard saying, I've got a smoking gun, and here we are. Like, there's nothing changed. Everybody understood. A bipartisan committee came forward with this information about Russia. So why are we rehashing the same situation? Every American should want to make sure that Russia in no way is involved in our elections, period. No matter how light it is, no matter how much little money they spent, they should not be involved in trying to make one candidate look terrible, and on the other hand, naturally make another candidate.
I don't agree, and I don't concede that that's true, but James Clapper reached the conclusion that Russia was responsible for getting Trump elected. He reached that conclusion. He said that in the pages of the New Yorker, despite having already seen the evidence that there was no hacking and so forth, but was directed to make a stronger statement by Barack Obama. I think that's a scandal. I don't know if it's treason,
about this, and we'll see what happens, which I think will be nothing.
The New York Times is reporting that President Trump is directing the Pentagon to use military force against foreign drug cartels, specifically those cartels that the administration has labeled terrorist organizations.
Now, the Times, which cites multiple sources familiar with this matter, says the order gives an official basis for potential direct military operations on foreign soil and sea. The Times also writes that military personnel are already weighing options for how to go about this.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussed the subject of foreign drug cartels last week. Let's listen.
We have to start treating them as armed terrorist organizations, not simply drug dealing organizations. Right. Drug dealing is the kind of terrorism they're doing, and it's not the only. Yeah. They also are into human trafficking, they smuggle anything, and there's been nascent cooperation between them and some international terrorist organizations in the past which pose an ongoing danger to the United States.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said she rejects the idea of U.S. military force in Mexico, saying in part, quote, "The United States is not going to come to Mexico with the military. We cooperate, we collaborate, but there's not going to be an invasion. That is ruled out, absolutely ruled out." I love that she disagrees with Trump so firmly, but then they still have dialogue, like civilized
Possible to
people.
do.
I appreciate that. I also think that everybody is anti-cartel. This is, again, similar and mirroring the D.C. issue, except the D.C. is under our federal jurisdiction, and targeting Mexico criminals is not. We are looking at them as a terrorist organization, and they're really a criminal group, and that's how historically we've always looked at people. And so I think to go in there and not go with Congress approval and not call this an act of war and just kind of violate some international agreements that we had by just deciding that we're going to just go about this tactic and not converse with anybody in Congress about a plan here, that's to me out of bounds. And also, we have an ally in Mexico. Why are we doing something that they did not ask us to do?
Well, because they're not taking this problem seriously enough is the Trump administration's perspective. The cartels are a menace. Everyone agrees on that. A terrorist organization needs to be dealt with. But yes, I would be similarly very reticent to, just start, bombing another country's territory without more willingness on their part or Congress to approve it. That would be a foreign war. And what would he keep saying? No new foreign wars. That's what Trump ran on. Now, he also ran on being very clear that the cartels are bad and something ought to be done. And the drug infestation is very bad. But I don't know. I think a lot of civil liberties violations can result from that, a lot of unintended consequences. If we turn Mexico into more of a failed state on our borders, that wouldn't be a good thing. A lot of our efforts to root out terrorism in the Middle East, as well-intentioned as they were, are now things we look back on and go, well, did this make the world more stable or less stable? We killed a lot of bad guys, but we also, contributed to the collapse of some governments that were far from ideal, but were better than what replaced them. So I would just say I'd be very reluctant to start indiscriminately bombing Mexico or sending ground troops into Mexico. Absolutely not. We're not sending ground troops anywhere else. No new wars, America first.
And also, there's so many nuances here that could get the U.S. in an uncomfortable situation across the board. Like, if this is not declared a war and you go over there and kill somebody that isn't like an imminent threat, that will be considered murder, right? That's like not giving somebody an opportunity to be.
Well, when the government does it, they pardon themselves for that.
Well, that's what that's
consider it murder.
Like, we don't want to. I don't think there could be international fallout from other countries. It's just a lot to think about when we make these firm stances and take these firm decisions, and President Trump just says stuff, or Marco Rubio kind of firmly says this is what we're doing to attack. Like, yes, this is a problem, and yes, we should handle it, but you have to work closely with the source of the problem, which would be Mexican authorities, to try to make it work. And Claudia Sheinbaum seems very unafraid to have direct conversation about what works for her and her country, and so maybe go that route without declaring something that she needs to respond to on social media.
Well, what works for us is for the president of Mexico to take the problem of the cartels a little bit more seriously than this. So
unserious, that's not an objective statement. Is she not taking it serious?
Get it under control, lady. It's your country. And if you don't get it under control, we will. But we don't want to. We want you to take it under control.
I
think that's the Trump perspective.
In an unexpected turn of events, leftist comedians Jimmy Kimmel and Sarah Silverman seemed to turn on some of their own liberals. To add insult to injury, they defended Joe Rogan. Here's Kimmel on Sarah Silverman podcast recently. Let's take a look.
You supported him, whatever. I don't buy into that. I don't believe the you supported him.
Just like,
I think everybody has to have the door needs to stay open.
well, that's my whole thing with the
If you want to change
left.
your mind, that's so hard to do. If you want to admit you were wrong, that's so hard and so rare to do.
And brave.
You are welcome.
Silverman dialed in on the left. Let's watch.
The left, it's just, I find it ironic. The left, I'm on the left. But like, I find in general, the party that is about inclusivity is incredibly elitist. Just say, join us. Yes, come, join us. Yes.
Kimmel at one point suggested using his Italian citizenship to escape from Trump. Let's take a look at that.
I do have Italian. I did get Italian citizenship.
You do?
I do.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I do have that. And what's going on is as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Way worse.
It's so much worse.
A fellow paisan. I guess I didn't quite know that. I could have guessed.
I like this conversation. I think that people should be brought to the table from all sides of the aisle. We got to a point of contention where if anybody spoke at Thanksgiving about anything different than the whole Thanksgiving dinner was ruined. And I think that was way too dramatic. We had to bring the temperature down and figure out, oh my gosh, the world didn't end. President Trump is president again, and it's fine. But I think the problem that bothers me, like with Andrew Schultz on his podcast, like, I didn't vote for any of this, I'm so confused. That is so phony and just like a terrible stance to take, because you understand what you voted for. Trump is pretty much doing exactly what he laid out he would do, and anything that he's not directly said he would do, like the things about immigration, specifically were outlined in Project 2025. And anybody who listened for 2 seconds could obviously see that these things, like when you're attacking DEI, or when you think about Russ Vought still being in a position of power, or John Radcliffe, all the people that created Project 2025 in positions of power throughout Trump's administration, this is exactly what would happen. So anybody confused about this is a little pathetic, because we had so much information about what would possibly happen, and you should be thrilled that the exact agenda that the president was pretending, mind you should be taking that for real when he said, I have no idea what this is, that's ridiculous. So the president pretending like he didn't know what it was, if you would have listened to the things coming out of his mouth, plus even take a look at what people were saying about Project 2025, you would have this presidency. There would be no confusion for you. So even though you're welcome to join the table and have the conversation, I don't want it to start with, oh my God, I'm so blindsided, because that is just a failure to be serious
Project
at all.
25 is just standard conservative policy positions that Republicans have talked about doing since the 1980s,
and
with
Trump
a couple
is doing,
updates.
He's following through, attacking
Correct.
the Department of
I agree.
Education.
So it's not surprising.
Ending diversity, equity, and inclusion, ending PBS and NPR. These were laid out in Project 2025.
If anyone, you're right, if anyone is saying, I voted for Trump, I didn't know he was going to get rid of DEI, I regret my vote, I don't know what to say to you, you're a moron then. Now, no one is like that, because ending DEI is popular and is something maybe not everyone wants to do, but everyone who voted for Trump wants to do. No one's having buyer's remorse over that.
Yeah, people are
maybe they're having buyer's
remorse.
remorse.
He's handling immigration. The way he's going about it is not okay.
Maybe some people are having buyer's remorse over that. I don't know. It's not DEI. Look, the deal.
Freezing federal assistance. Another thing people have issued. People have lost their job by them cutting all these federal positions and just firing people frivolously. They had a problem with DOJ doing what it does, but this was all laid out in Project 2025.
Problems with that.
I interviewed a Republican that specifically got fired from a federal agency and was like, yo, what did I do? I got stellar reviews from my job, straight A's across the board.
Right.
And DOJ
But
said
too
bye-bye.
many government employees, and we got to shrink the federal workforce.
Okay, but don't start with your stellar worker. Okay, would you like, if that happens to you, you're a top performer, and then they're like, oh, Trump said you got to go because numbers don't.
If I was not needed, then I got to go. I mean, dude, it's got to be run like a business. It's got to be profitable, or it's got to be profit is the wrong word to use for it because it's government. It's got to be financially sound. We can't just have a gazillion people that all get nice, reviews. That's good for them, but we're massively in debt, and part of that is how big our federal workforce is. So I don't think doing that is unpopular. It might be true that some of the way the deportations are being handled go beyond the reasonable bound of what people wanted. People want criminals and terrorists and gang members deported. I don't think most people necessarily just want every immigrant sent home. And there's debate even within the administration about what ICE should prioritize. Tom Homan and Stephen Miller had a difference of opinion on it. So some of these things are still being debated internally. So it's not like, well, you voted for this, though. How can you be outraged about it? When there's disagreement in MAGA about what should be done. There's some disagreement on tariffs. Should they be designed to bring about more favorable trade relations and then got rid of, or should they be permanently in place so that we can build everything in America? That's a major ideological difference between your Peter Navarro wing and your Elon Musk wing. And so some of these are just, Republicans actually disagree on some things. The Republican tent is vast. There's disagreement. Maybe Democrats are just unfamiliar with that.
Well, they can be open-minded and have conversation also with Democrats that will say, hey, okay, here's some places that we told you was going to happen if we did X, Y, and Z. And so don't be confused why the economy is still trash because, hey, well, we're not doing anything to fix it and making that the priority like was promised.
Is the economy trash?
I mean, most people feel very
words.
the poll that I showed you, the Morning Consult poll said 61%, I believe, 6 out of 10 Americans feel like their rent is too high, they're uncomfortable with these numbers, and they're blaming President Trump. So these are probably the same disgruntled voters that are like, I didn't vote for this, right? Because you said you were going to do this, fix the economy. So these are things that he's trying to maybe with these tariffs.
Been 6 months.
But people don't, they don't accept what he's trying to do.
Trust the process.
No,
Lindsay.
the process is
Trust the process.
You know, with Biden, there was no trust the process. Like everything he's doing wrong from the day one he stepped in, and since President Trump didn't win the election against Biden. But as soon as he got in office, now it's like, give me a minute, give me 2 years. I'm spending $200 million on this ballroom. I'll fix everything.
Well, Biden made some lofty promises coming into office to a return to normalcy. And he had every advantage as he was starting. The vaccine had just become, was just like announced, was going to become widely available within weeks.
Did we not return to a sense of normalcy?
More people died of COVID the first year of Biden's presidency than the final year of Trump's. It was still bad for a while. It was just, there was nothing that could be done. It was just going to burn itself through. And all of that, screaming at Trump for mishandling the pandemic, well, it couldn't have been handled very differently regardless of who was in charge, because everyone was just going to get COVID eventually, and that was what was going to happen, which is what the let it rip people said from the start, and they were correct.
But the answer can't be when people criticize, like even with Joe Rogan, he's criticizing President Trump about the Epstein files, and you have been like, oh, let's stop talking about this too. Can't believe you jumped on that bandwagon. But every time internally,
searches for Epstein were down significantly.
I don't care. Every time people jump into the conversation, then it's like, okay, well, let's just like redirect or sweep it under the rug, and that's just acceptable from President Trump. It shouldn't be acceptable, and I'm glad that Republican people are calling him, putting his feet to the fire and saying, this is not what I voted for. But I also think they should review all things that he stood on and say, is this actually what I voted for? Maybe if I'd done a little bit more research, this is exactly what I voted for. Besides the Epstein thing, which was very vocally and directly, he said he was going to do one thing, and this whole administration did the opposite. Not Trump, but his team.
Yeah, Trump is doing exactly what he said about the Epstein files, and he was right from the beginning.
His team
Trump is 100%
and so now there's
right about
shady
it.
Dealings, and I can't believe the MAGA base is like, oh, no worries, this is fine. Your boy Joe Rogan, who arguably swayed the entire election, correct? I mean,
Trump is
with young
Trump
people.
Is a good shepherd.
So people who still listen to him still want answers.
And he's leading the flock toward truth.
A good shepherd.
And the flock is listening, and he's educating.
You're on the wrong.
We're learning.
You're on the wrong side of
We're
history
learning
here,
from Trump.
Robbie. People want you to stand firm in your conviction that we need more information.
No, when
okay?
he's right, he's right. I concede that he's probably right about this. Well, I mean, we can get more. He said we can get more information if there's more to be gotten. We don't have to take, Pam Bondi's word for it. I'm not saying that. He's
take
just
Ghislaine
saying,
Maxwell's word for it.
No, we definitely should. No, we should not take
Who's now
Ghislaine.
friends with President Trump because she wants a pardon. Let's definitely take her word for it.
Absolutely not. I'm affirmatively saying we should not take her word for it. No one should take her word for it. That would be a mistake.
So let's release the documents that they have access to. The Treasury Department documents, follow the money. Let's start doing those
now
things.
you're an Epstein
I'm
cruiser.
deep
Release the
in
documents.
this. Release
thousands
the documents.
and thousands and thousands of pages of documents have already been released.
And Trump's name has been redacted, and he won't release those. So
we know.
Okay, we want more information.
We know all the stuff.
We're gonna. I'm sorry, Robbie. It's not going away. People have gotten subpoenaed. This is gonna go through August at the very minimum. So I'm sorry. You just got to get on board. We're gonna talk about it a lot more. We might spend as many hours as that man did on ChatGPT researching how to be a brilliant scientist.
God.
In the last story we talked about, that's how much we're gonna talk about Epstein. So you might as well just come back over, change your perspective. I'm deeply interested in this story, and I need to come up with a resolution. I need to figure out what happened here, and so does America. So I don't even know how this subject turned into this, but all roads lead to Epstein always. If you want to talk about Trump, you got to talk about Epstein.
All right, then. Buckle up, buckaroos. California Governor Gavin Newsom once again butting heads with Trump and also Republicans.
But this time, he's vowing to wield gerrymandering in his state to neutralize any seats Republicans may gain in the House due to Texas' controversial redistricting efforts. Let's take a look.
Hey, President Trump, it's time to stand down. It's time to make another phone call to Greg Abbott. This time, instead of calling him and telling him you're, quote unquote, entitled to 5 congressional seats, it's time to tell him to stand down. If you don't, California will neutralize anything you do in the state of Texas. California will continue to punch above its weight. We're not going to sit back and watch you light democracy on fire. We will fight fire with fire.
Newsom posting that video to social media Monday as Texas Democratic lawmakers are now in their 9th day of self-imposed exile in order to deny the legislature a chance to vote on the new maps.
Newsom's threat wasn't taken well on the right. Here's Texas Governor Greg Abbott's response on CNN last night.
All those big blue states, they've already gerrymandered. They got nothing left with regard to what they can do. And know this, if California tries to gerrymander 5 more districts, listen, Texas has the ability to eliminate 10 Democrats in our state. We can play that game more than they can because they have fewer Republican districts in their states.
But, okay, this is the problem. The American people don't want to be part of this game. They literally want the census to work how it was made to work. And so this whole gerrymandering back and forth, even though historically I know it's happened on both sides, I don't agree with it on either side. I think it should follow the rules of the census, which is intentionally, or Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which is that if states grow and have communities of color and things like that, then the representation should grow as well, and the map should reflect that. Like, these are the points of the census. I mean, that's the point. Every 10 years we have a system. And I actually appreciate that Democrats, who are long criticized for not doing anything but sitting back and complaining, are actually doing something. I don't agree that this issue in gerrymandering is the one that I would prefer, but there still is something being done. They're not just sitting back and taking it to a vote in Texas and allowing it. And then other Democrats across the country are stepping up like, okay, if you want to break the rules, we'll break the rules. And I know it's technically not breaking the rules, but it's not representing the American people in the way that we want these maps to represent people. And there's multiple examples of, undercounting in the census, overcounting. And so it's not perfect, but it also doesn't require a political affiliation to say, oh, we need some more seats, we need some more votes. Come on, let's just change it because this works in our favor. I don't like it.
Democrats and Republicans gerrymander their districts like crazy because, and what's interesting about this is both parties have an incentive to have gerrymandered districts, and they almost want to let, like, okay, you're a red state, so that's fine. We're going to token opposition to what you're doing, but we do it too in our blue state. And what's so interesting is they just want to have safe districts for each other. So, like, they don't want a competitive district because they don't want to, like, both sides want, instead of having 5 districts where each are evenly split and Republicans and Democrats, like, either side could win and they actually have to campaign, they'd rather just have, even in the red leaning state, the Democrats say, okay, yeah, take your 3 or your 4 and we'll have our 1, and our 1's safe for me and your 4 are safe. They'd rather have it this way than have them all even so that they have to fight in each one of them. So there's just huge incentive to like make this thing in a way that is not favorable from democratic accountability standpoint. I don't know how you fix it, and it's like a disaster. You're never going to get buy-in from the two parties to fix it. So this is kind of one of those problems where I'm like, there is no reasonable solution because the people who would have to sit down and look at this and say, we're doing this a bad way, but it advantages them to do it like this, and both sides. So, and
I think people are just expecting more. This is literally what ignited the MAGA base, right? People are expecting more from, or actually not even more, something different than what has historically existed from new leaderships. People are arguing for Democrats to bring in young voices, new ideas. What I just watched between Newsom and the governor Abbott, that's ridiculous to see 2 leaders get on screen and say, well, I'm going to do this. They felt like grade school. And so that's the point that's disheartening and just completely ineffective when there's real people who feel underrepresented across the country. There's real data that shows that, districts have grown in size. Like Texas has grown its population of Black and Latino people extreme levels, but none of the maps have reflected that in any way. And so I think that is a conversation and it's not going to stop. And I think real people are affected by these games that they're playing.
Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is attempting to boost his chances in the New York City mayoral race. His latest strategy is attacking Zohran Mamdani's rent-stabilized apartment. Now, in a lengthy post on X, which garnered tens of millions of views, Cuomo writes, somewhere last night in New York City, a single mother and her children slept at a homeless shelter because you, Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, are occupying her rent-controlled apartment. He adds, you make $142,000 a year plus stipends. No matter which way you cut it, Zohran Mamdani is a rich person. You are actually very rich, yet you and your wife pay $2,300 a month. As you've bragged for a nice apartment in Astoria, that should be housing for someone who needs it. Kept it all off by saying, today I am calling on you to move out immediately and give your affordable housing back to an unhoused family who need it. Leaders must show moral clarity. Time to move out.
Cuomo also announced this weekend his proposal for Zorons Law, which he says aims to keep the rich out of New York's affordable housing. Let's take a look.
Rent-stabilized units, when they're vacant, should only be rented to people who need affordable housing, not people like Zohran Mamdani. You don't need to be renting rent-stabilized units to wealthy people. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're abusing the system. I'm going to propose not rent that apartment by law except to a person who actually needs affordable housing. And I'm going to call it Zorons Law because it's an abuse of the system.
Now, Mamdani has not responded to Cuomo's message for proposed the law, but the attacks come days after recent polling shows Mamdani is leading Cuomo by 13 points, according to a recent Decision Desk HQ poll. As a reminder, Cuomo currently lives in an $8,200 a month Manhattan apartment, according to the Times. Additionally, Forbes estimates Cuomo is worth about $10 million, which they say is a roughly five-fold gain in less than a decade. And if you want to do the math, CNBC estimates the income needed to be considered middle class in New York City ranges from $51,000 to $153,000. So Zoran Mamdani wasn't even in middle class consideration because he made $47,000 when he got that apartment, and you know, there was a difference.
Now he makes 140 something.
Yeah, but he made 47 when he got it, and he stayed there. How many times when you move somewhere and you're comfortable would you get out of that apartment? I don't think he's like, how can I take advantage of the people? I think he found a cheap apartment, got a new job more recently, and made a new salary. And so now he also said directly that he plans to move. But this is all a lot going on in the middle of a campaign.
I mean, I guess the point would be he comes from significant wealth and privilege, though. So while he maybe didn't on paper have a good income, I mean, this just speaks to the difficulty of correctly making these laws in such a way where you're only giving some benefit to people who are truly needy and not to others. Yes, again, because of his income status, he might perfectly well have qualified for it at the time. But I know from... You know, I remember my college days where a bunch of students at the University of Michigan, they had, in Michigan we called them, I think, bridge cards. It's basically food stamps because you have no income, so you can qualify for it, that they would just use to buy beer. It's an age-old problem.
You can't
but
buy.
It's not enforceable.
You can't buy beer on. That's not how that works.
This was the state, the local,
Oh, got it,
not
okay.
the federal
Got it,
food
okay.
stamp problem. But that doesn't work either because money is fungible. So you can just spend like whatever money you were going to spend on groceries, now you're spending with this, and you spend the money you would spend on groceries on beer, so it doesn't, even that prescription doesn't work.
For Cuomo, this is very much a distraction, right? We know last week that people were tying him to President Trump. We know that he is probably surprised and bewildered that somebody like Mamdani, who was basically nameless a year ago, has outpaced him in the polls. We know that that doesn't make him comfortable in this race. And people are saying that he had a direct conversation with President Trump. He's denying it. But even his behavior is very Trump-esque. Let me find something. I got to do a jab. Instead of like actively talking about policies that he would put in place, he's like, how can I jab Mamdani? And it's also really interesting to hear him talk about affordable housing when he's providing no solutions to provide affordable housing to. And what Mamdani is doing, he's not providing any relief for New Yorkers who resonate, especially in New York City, with the problem of overly expensive housing. I mean, he works specifically and has donors that are big real estate developers. And so a lot of the policies he's put in place over the years are anti keeping the rents low, right? For owners of these buildings and owners of big, massive properties in New York City.
Well, I certainly don't support government intervention to dictate to people what they can charge for the properties they own. I think that's the difference between rent control and rent stabilization. I could be wrong. Rent control is right. It is the government saying, here's what you have to charge. Rent stabilization is probably, I'm guessing, the government subsidizing the difference between what it costs and what they're going to raise it by so that you don't feel the effects of the raise, but that the property owner can still raise the rent. Regardless, the solution is very obvious, very easy solution. You got to build more housing. Allow more housing to be built because when there's more availability, prices
So should they go upwards?
slower.
Because New York is kind of packed, if you've seen it recently. Like where are they building at?
I don't know, redevelop some office buildings that people aren't using anymore because more people work from home. I'm sure it can be done. Regulation gets in the way, and that's how you fix it.
So all the times, like Cuomo's talking about Mamdani's morals, everything that he said in the read-in into this segment, you are going to allow this to fly, knowing that Cuomo morally was acting pretty bankrupt when it came down to people in those nursing homes just a few years ago, knowing that he has a lot of accusations against him that morally would be seen incorrect. And knowing that...
I don't have a dog in this fight. I mean, I don't like Andrew Cuomo. I would never vote for him based on...
But you love Mamdani.
I don't love Mamdani at all. I mean, I don't have anything against him personally the way I sort of do against Cuomo, but Mamdani's socialist policies will ruin New York, obviously, so I don't want him to... I have no dog. I don't live in New York and would not vote for either of these candidates. I would probably vote for Eric Adams, honestly. And I didn't like him very much either, but he seems by far the least bad of the options.
Every time you see Eric Adams, he's more like in the mix in the party. He seems like more like your friend and your homie than somebody who needs to be leading the state, or the city.
Not my circus, not my monkeys, but I do care about affordable housing, and the best way to have affordable housing is to allow for more housing to be built, allow for competition. I just went through this. I live in a neighborhood that right now does have a lot of availability, and my building I had to renew my lease. They tried to jack up my rent. It was outrageous. I've never seen anything like this. I said, no, I will not pay this. This is insane. And I started looking at the units across the street, and they came back to me and said, oh, okay, never mind. And I
left it the same.
That's didn't leave it the same. Still a little increase, but way less than what they prescribed. Oh yeah.
I was like, no high five.
That's worth it.
That's actually really.
So
good.
I'm encouraging you,
stand up for yourself.
Stand up for yourself. Negotiate.
Okay, well, and it's also good when leadership tells people not to do stuff like that, right? I know you don't like federal involvement, and we might disagree wholeheartedly about the approach there. But if people are saying, okay, if the rent was $2,300, you can't make it $5,000. Like there has to be some type of limitation on how greedy people can be when you're dealing with people that are struggling with inflation and a bunch of other stuff. So if Cuomo actually wanted to provide a solution, he can lay one out and not come up with Zorons Law that tells people that they can't live in rent-controlled apartments. Like that's not the main crux of the issue with housing in New York City, that a lot of people are taking over spaces.
I don't want the government trying to prescribe what the right cost. I mean, Argentina just went through this. Javier Milei, my guy, my hero, fixing so many of that country's problems, ended rent control, said landlords can charge whatever they want, and has dramatically increased the availability of housing in the country by just letting the market do its work. Not having the government decide.
What are the housing prices looking like now? I bet they're
because there's more availability. You don't have to worry about that problem as much, because then, well, if I can't afford this one, there's competition is what brings down prices. We just allow for more competition.
Well, that's one solution, but I'm not hearing any solutions from Cuomo's side, and that's kind of my biggest concern, is that he's deflecting from having a conversation with Trump, which he knows is not a winning connection for anybody who's voting democratically.
I would need to know more about what this apartment, like the size of this apartment, to evaluate whether that price sounds.
It's probably astronomically high for a one-bedroom if they have that.
Well, in Astoria, I'm not a New York expert. I visit the city more than I'd like to because I don't really like it.
It really can't be huge. I mean, I have friends that
live in
Astoria.
is Queens?
Queens, yeah, and it's a pretty expensive part of Queens. It's not like it's very close to Manhattan.
If that's a one-bedroom apartment, that sounds cheap to me. Very cheap for that price. If it's
a studio.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe that's fair. I don't know. If it's a big apartment, then that's outrageous that they can artificially keep it that low. I don't know. I don't know how nice it is. I don't know what modern appliances it has. I don't really care either. He can take advantage of the law the way it's written, just like anyone else. That's fine, but I don't like the policy overall. That's what I would say.